Welcome back to another Healthy Illini podcast. I'm your host, Matt Schrock. This is our second podcast, and so if you were here for the first one, we appreciate you coming back and sticking with us. If this is your first one you're hearing, welcome. We're glad you're here. The Healthy Illini podcast is a quick hit podcast that we're throwing out there to talk on some topics to help keep you well to excel. And it's not going to be the end all of any conversation. It's the start of the conversation. Then we'll give you opportunity to follow up, to engage, and really just give you some tools that will help you on your health and wellness journey. We're a little over a week into this first semester, and we're excited that you're here on campus. If you're here on campus, we're excited that you're here. We're excited that we get to engage with you. And right now, you're getting a lot of stuff thrown at you: where you need to go, where you've been, what you need on your schedule, who you know, who you need to find out, or who to meet. And so there's a lot of things coming at you, and we're really grateful that you take the time just to let us be a part of that. Today, we have a really exciting opportunity to share with you some ways that you can connect with other peers, other students, but then turn around and be a part of that connecting with other students. So before I get too long-winded, we're going to jump into it and talk about our peer ed groups. So today I'm joined by three guests that I'm really excited to introduce you to. First up is Kate Donaldson. She is the peer ed coordinator and sex health educator here at Mckinley. Kate has been involved in a lot of things with peer groups. And so Kate, thanks for being here with us today.
Hi, everybody. I'm glad to be here.
Next up, we have Bryn Grossman. Bryn is a rising senior, and her major is food science and human nutrition with a concentration on dietetics. I think I said that right. Woo-hoo. But that's a lot. Bryn is part of our nutrition peer groups. And so, Bryn, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
And rounding out our group today is Kayla Evans. Kayla is a rising junior here at UIUC, and she is a psychology major, and she is here to represent the stress management peers. Kayla, appreciate you being here with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So we're going to give them a chance to talk about what groups they are and what they do and kind of how it's influenced them. But before we get into that, I want to take it back to Kate for a moment, because we've talked, I keep mentioning peer education group or peer ed group. What does that mean, Kate? What are we even talking about?
Yeah, it's a good question, Matt. Thanks for asking. So Mckinley Peer Education is an awesome volunteer leadership opportunity for any student on campus. So you'll hear about 2 peer education groups today, but we actually have 5. We have the sexual health peers, we have stress management peers, fitness peers, nutrition peers, and special populations. And all of these groups, even though they focus on different areas of wellness, they're all working to build a stronger, healthier, more well campus. And so through all kinds of different activities, outreach, events, social media, which you'll hear a little bit about from our peers today, they get to inspire and influence and help support their peers on campus in their health and wellness journey, like you mentioned, Matt. So it's a really cool opportunity where you get to be creative, you get to speak from your own experience, and just be a really integral part of health and wellness on campus, and especially at McKinley Health Center.
And that's one of the reasons I'm so eager to have this particular podcast, is because when we started Healthy Illini, the intent was to connect. The intent was to create community, to create an opportunity for students to come together and address topics or find out more information on topics. And so that's what peer ed groups are. They're about community, and they're about connecting, whether it be with the people who come to the events or the people within the group. And so I'm really excited to have that be a part of what we're sharing today. So let's just jump into it just a little bit. I'm going to start with Kayla. Kayla is part of our stress management peers. And so real quick, let's just start with kind of a little bit of what they do. Kayla, if someone comes to you and says, what are stress management peers? What are you going to tell them?
Basically that, like Kate said, we're just trying to build a healthier campus. And what we do is just educate people about how to manage stress. We kind of know that college can be a stressful time. I know for me, during freshman year, it was a completely new environment. And it's a lot to handle. It's a different workload. So you kind of need something to kind of manage that stress. And what we do is just hold workshops where we educate people about how to manage that, like through deep breathing or progressive muscle relaxation, so that you don't feel overwhelmed by all your stress, and you can kind of have an outlet, whether through arts or breathing or whatever. We also do stress less parties every year, which is really another great way to relieve stress, where we have food, games, prizes, and all the peer groups come together and just have a great time.
Is there anything, as a member of the stress management peers, is there anything, is there a particular focus you guys are having right now with how can we address these concerns with coming back to campus and things like that? Is that something that you're talking about? Is that something that is coming up in your conversations and your planning as well? How does that look for you?
Yeah, I know during the last semester, it was really difficult because we were trying to figure out how to get people to show up to our Mindful Mondays or our workshops, our pop-up workshops in general. And so I think just being, this type of group, you have to be creative and you kind of have to figure out, okay, what can we do? So we've been trying to focus on using the newsletters to try to get our workshops out there so people can attend that. And we've kind of been focusing on, maybe changing it up to where we record some of our workshops and put them online so people can access them that way instead of having to go in person. So we're still discussing what the fall is going to look like. So hopefully it'll be well.
I think everybody on campus is discussing what the fall is going to look like in every aspect.
Right.
Kayla, I remember in the spring, the stress management peers did a virtual stress less party and got super creative about a game show stress less party, which was such a cool way to still be together, even though we were obviously all remote. But I remember that from the spring.
Yeah. So we're just, coming up with those creative ideas to try to, navigate this pandemic, but still be, interactive and engaged.
And the stress management peers, we talk about them as a group, but again, this podcast, one of the things I would do is connect. And so I want to ask you, Kayla, as UIUC student, a member of the group, not as representative of the group necessarily, but why did you join? What brought you to the stress management peers? And then how have you personally benefited from just being a part of the group?
Yeah, so it was kind of an accident how I came to the stress management peers, because when I was a freshman, I felt like I was really isolated. During the freshman years, like I said, it's a new environment. You're kind of nervous about meeting new people. Sometimes you can accidentally isolate yourself because you feel like, what's the point? But I felt determined to I need to get myself out there. If I'm going to meet new people, if I'm going to grow, I need to get out there. So my advisor had put up, stress management peers are having a meeting. And so I went into it thinking, oh, we're just going to learn about stress, blah, blah. And then they were like, oh, no, we're going to be facilitating workshops. And I'm like, oh, that's a new experience that I've never done before. But it was really beneficial to me because I never felt comfortable presenting or talking publicly to strangers. But this kind of workshop environment was like, you kind of have to, grow in your communication, and it's really, and, be creative, like I mentioned earlier. And it's really the club itself and the people in it are really like family. They care about you and your success. And that's really important when, you're in my position and you feel like you're alone and you don't have friends, and they kind of create that environment where it's like, no, you're okay.
That's fantastic. And then here you are on a podcast you've never done before, on a podcast that's never been done before. So you went from not wanting to present to be in the face of it right now. So I appreciate that a lot. And that's just fantastic. I want to transition a little bit over to Bryn now and have her share a little bit about nutrition peers and what they do. And, when we talk about the mental health is a big thing right now. Mental health is a huge thing on campus and everywhere because of the pandemic and all those sorts of things. And so when you hear mental health, stress management, those kind of go hand in hand. But not everybody thinks nutrition goes with mental health and stress management, and it does. So Bryn, just what does nutrition peers do, and how can that benefit the student body at large right now, especially coming back to in-person instruction?
Yeah, so like Kayla kind of talked about, nutrition peers is similar to the stress type vibe of the peers that she does as well. So this was my first full year nutrition peers because I transferred my major last summer during COVID summer that's when I transferred. So I had heard about Nutrition Peers through a girl who was in my social sorority, who was in Nutrition Peers, who was in the same major as me. So when she told me about what it kind of was about, I was like, wow, this sounds awesome. So basically what Nutrition Peers is this year, it obviously looked a little bit different because we couldn't go in person. But if it was a normal year, usually what we would do is we would set up different stations at places around campus and kind of just have different games and different posters all about just food related things like calorie counting and fad diets and why eating the rainbow is important. So this year, because of COVID, we basically just our meetings were through Zoom, and Ashley Peters, the McKinley dietitian, for those who don't know, she led it alongside with an assistant named an assistant who they basically first semester, they taught us everything we needed to know. And then we kind of put that into play second semester. So since I was a returning nutrition peer, I was fortunate enough to be able to teach the new nutrition peers what they needed to know. Alongside with that, we also created Instagram posts, and you all should follow UIUC Nutrition Peers on Instagram. We post awesome things about everything, like I said before, about eating the rainbow and fad diets and fun TikToks. And also Ashley has her own YouTube channel that I feel like a lot of people don't know about. She posts a lot of videos with recipes and stuff. So going back to the whole mental health aspect, yeah, like you said, Matt, a lot of people don't put food with mental health together, but honestly, like, they really go hand in hand, because you need to have a healthy relationship with food in order to keep your mental headspace, I feel like, as strong as possible. And I think really educating yourself about those types of things will be good for your mental health, because once you teach yourself more and learn more about why it is important to be eating as much as possible during the day and eating 3 meals and having a balanced diet, it will just overall benefit your health and your headspace.
And you touched on it a little bit about why you joined, because you did change major and you'd heard about it through a friend. And that's huge on a college campus. There's just so many things that come up just because you hear about them from somebody else, and that's why these peer groups are so important, because it's students talking to students. But how do you feel that it's personally benefited you to be a part of the nutrition peers group? What has supported you, and how have you grown because you've been a part of the group?
Yeah, so I think that I've just been able to learn a lot this year through Nutrition Peers, and I've been able to better myself and be able to take that information that I've learned and teach it to people who I personally know, like my friends and family, alongside with the fact that I've been able to create Instagram posts for Nutrition Peers, which has benefited me a lot, because it's been able to teach me how to be better with social media. And I have a personal food Instagram account. So I've been able to take posts from my personal food Instagram and use that with Nutrition Peers. So being able to use my own photos and recipes and post that to Nutrition Peers, and then use my creativity to post on Nutrition Peers as well. It's really been awesome, because it just benefited me in a lot of different ways. And I feel that now that I know all the information I know, if we are back in person this year, I'll just feel like it'll be really rewarding to be able to take this whole year's worth of learning and finally be able to teach others about it, because nutrition is such a big topic. Everyone cares about what they eat. Everyone cares about food. Food is just like a universal I guess it's more of like a social aspect. It's a personal aspect. Like, it's just everywhere all the time. So me being able to teach others about it will be a really rewarding type of thing.
Kate, thanks, Bryn. Thanks, Kayla. We'll come back to you in a moment for some more information. But Kate, I want you to touch base on some of the other peer groups we have, but also I love that both Kayla and Bryn have spoken about that it's really it's student ownership in these groups. That it's not just, hey, show up and the professional, quote unquote, is going to run things, but the students to have a lot of input into these things. And so share about the other three groups and then kind of how it's designed to give students that empowerment.
Yeah, I think it's been actually really cool to hear Bryn and Kayla's experience, because I think on, being on the professional side of organizing the peer education program, that's exactly what we want to hear, is that it's a rewarding experience. It's an experience that you feel like you are building using your strengths and your passion. And so just you've heard some similarities. You've heard facilitating workshops, you've heard tabling different locations on campus, you've heard social media development, and these are all ways that we can get health information out to other students, right? All kinds of different avenues. And so those are the similarities between groups, just different health topics. And so not where we don't have a representative today, we is from sexual health peers. So sexual health peers really focus on changing the way we talk about sexual health on campus. So their whole goal is just to normalize conversations, which is really cool because that aligns with this podcast, right? Like just starting conversations, like you said, Matt. Everyone's curious. Everybody has a sexual health to take care of. And also making sure that people have access to safer sex supplies and sexual health care at Mckinley and in the community too. So that's kind of their focus. Fitness peers provide information on fitness, physical activity, and just kind of overall wellness. They host, again, workshops, tablings. They often will do warm-ups and be involved in different physical activity opportunities on campus, like a field day or a 5K, things like that happening on campus. So any opportunity that they can help increase people's access to physical activity and exercise. And then last, but certainly not least, is special populations. And their focus is really on multicultural health. And so focusing on health disparities and for different health issues that are more vulnerable to different races and ethnicities, and making sure that people have, again, access to healthcare and access to like general wellness, but specifically to some of our marginalized populations on campus.
We do happen to have two students here. Kayla is a psych major, and that relates directly to stress management. And we have Bryn, who is in nutrition, and that is obviously a nutrition peers. But do you have to be a student with those majors in order, if you have to be something tied to sexual health in order to be a part of that group, or tied to fitness to be a part of that group? Do you have to have a certain major to be a part of these peer groups, Kate?
Yeah, good question, Matt. The answer is yes and no. So each group is very unique in the way that they operate. So even though we share these similarities, they each, still has a very unique identity. And so nutrition peers is the one group that does have an academic major requirement. And I'm also not going to get the acronym right, but it's fission, which I'm sure students know that lingo. They have to have a major within fission. Other peer groups, they don't have an academic major requirement, but there is a recommendation. But within, like, I coordinate sexual health peers, and within sexual health peers, we have students from microbiome to anthropology to accounting, like very diverse academic focus. So there's recommendations for the other groups, but that's definitely not a requirement. Nutrition peers is the only one that does have that requirement.
So, if you're listening to this and you're like, man, that group sounds kind of cool and I might be interested in it, by all means, let us know and reach out and see if it's a fit for you. That said, if a student is that person, if they're listening to this and, man, I resonate with that and identify with that, how do they go about joining or inquiring, or what do they do? And any of you can answer for your particular groups. I want you to talk about your particular group especially, but what's the first step for a student to find out how they can join a peer ed group?
Yeah, I can start, and then maybe Kayla and Bryn, you can chime in. I will say, Bryn, you mentioned Nutrition Peers Instagram, which all of the peer groups are on social media. Most of them, I would say, are most active on Instagram. Some still have a Facebook, but we know that's old school at this point. And so social media is actually a really good way to get connected. So start following them, and even send a DM, send a direct message, so that's a really great way to get connected, just to like maybe answer a few questions. The other really great place to go to is McKinley's website. So mckinley.illinois.edu. At the top, there's a tab that's called Health Education. And underneath that, there's a peer education page. And there's descriptions of each of the groups. There's those commitments and requirements that I've kind of talked about. And then there's some details for the group too, because some have certain meeting dates, some have certain like application deadlines. And so there's details that are specific for each group. So you can kind of decide what group you're interested in, and then get the details of how to join all on the McKinley website.
Yeah, it's pretty similar with us with stress management peers. You would go to our social medias, smp.uiuc. We're on Instagram and Facebook, but like Kate said, Facebook is, but anyway, so yeah, you would do that.
And lastly, for me, since everything was during COVID when I joined, I just reached out to Ashley, who again is the dietitian for McKinley. And I said, hey, I'm interested in joining Nutrition Peers. What do I need to do next? And then she was just like, we're going to have a quick interview, nothing to worry about. And yeah, it was as easy as that.
I did forget to mention, Matt, there's also a email that if you can't find a connection to a specific group, there is a general peer education email that you can send questions to, or just kind of express interest, and then one of us within McKinley Health Education will kind of help direct you and make sure that to get you connected. So that email is MHC, so like McKinley Health Center, MHC peered@illinois.edu. And that's a really great starting point if you feel lost or feel like you don't know where to go. But so that's a good starting point too.
Another way that you can try and find out if you have questions is simply just call up McKinley. Call us up. And if you go to the phone tree, if you go to administration, you'll find me or Zach. Usually that's the other guy that we answer the phones in administration. Just say, hey, I'm looking for some peer group opportunities, and we will put you right in contact with the health ed department. We'll get you where you want to go, because we want to help get you connected. We want you to be a part of what's going on the campus. We want you to be a part of sharing what's going on the campus and being a part of pushing forward the ways that we want students to connect and be helped and that sort of thing. So we really encourage you to be a part of that. And we'll finish out this podcast with a list of some of those resources. You can also find links to those resources in our bio for this episode. So if you go to the episode bio, wherever you're listening to this, that'll be listed with links and things like that. So we can get you connected with some of that. But before we get to that outro, I do want to say thank you to our guests today. Thank you to Kate, Kayla, and Bryn. Really appreciate you being here and sharing. And we're really excited to see what happens next. So I appreciate you coming on to the podcast.
Kayla and Bryn, y'all are rock stars. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Yes.
I've said it before, and I'm sure I'll say it again. Healthy Illini is about starting conversations and connecting with each other. And we're here to connect you with professionals, but also other students where we can. And peer groups at McKinley offer lots of opportunities to get involved or connect with other students who care about the same topics. So the time to sign up, the time to ask questions, and to check it out is now. And as Kate said earlier, every peer group has a presence on Instagram, and that's probably the easiest way to connect. Thank you for joining us today. You are on a personal journey, no matter where you are in it. You are important. You matter. Your health and wellness are important and matter. And we are here to keep you well to excel. So have a great week, guys. Let us know how you're doing, and we'll catch you next week on Healthy Illini.